What's up, guys? So I have a special video for you guys today, and I've been waiting for a while to make this one, and I'm not really sure yet how I want to frame this up, so I'm just gonna roll with this one. But essentially what I want to talk about is how to use Garmin LiveScope as a tool and not just a big fish tool. I mean, I'm as guilty as anyone. We know everyone's out these days. We're going out looking for these isolated giant fish that have never been targeted. And that's great and it's fun, and you can go catch the biggest fish of your life and the biggest bag of your life doing so. But that being said, how does the average guy get out and use this as a tool to catch more fish? How do we use it as a tournament tool? Because we all know you can go out and chase those giants, but there are days where you never even get an opportunity at a fish, especially in certain parts of the country. So how do we use it to make more money in tournaments? How do we use it to catch more fish when we're out fun fishing? And that's kind of what I want to dive into, because I think, you know, using LiveScope now the last 4 or 5 years, I'm kind of got to be ahead of that curve when everyone started putting this on their boat and using it, right? So that being said, I've learned some things that some people haven't spent enough time with it to learn. And one of the biggest things I've learned, especially with my tournament background and how I do a lot of tournament fishing, is how to use it just to catch more fish and be more efficient on the water rather than just going out and chasing those random giants, which I still love to do and do every chance I get the opportunity. But at the end of the day, I want to see this unit help me make more money, help me catch more fish and enjoy my time on the water. So I think we're going to kind of walk through just a handful of scenarios of different ways I use my unit just to go catch fish, even when I'm not plucking off isolated giant fish. And I really don't know where to start. And I'm going to show you guys a couple of different baits, including you know, a few different jerk baits and glide baits and just different baits that I'm using and different ways I'm using them. So I think we're going to probably start offshore, and then I'm just going to go from there. And I'll use some examples here in the mix as well of things that have happened to me recently that are fresh on the brain of ways I've caught fish. And the first one is going to be fishing around brush piles and hard spots offshore, right? And it doesn't matter if you're fishing these in 6 foot of water, 20 foot of water. It's the same concept. It may be different baits, but the same concepts, right? So I spent some time at a tournament here a few weeks ago at a lake called Sooner Lake here in Oklahoma. And we did not win the tournament by any means, but we were competitive. We went out, caught 14, 15 pounds, right? But what I figured out is there were these fish that were offshore that I could not see. So I would pull up to a brush pile, and there may be one fish in it that I could see visually, right? And a lot of these brush piles were located on points that just happened to be either rocky or hard spots where these fish could sit on bottom and hide. I think we all know by now, if you've spent any time with LiveScope, there are definitely fish out there that you cannot see. You just cannot see some of these fish on certain types of bottom. And there's settings that can help you see better, but there's no fish. There's no position where you see every single fish, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we went out to this tournament, and I figured out that I could go around wood that was on bottom, on hard bottom specifically, and throw a jerkbait around, right? Now what I would have to do is wear my arm out and throw it out there and work the bait as I would normally and wait for these fish to rise off the bottom. Now that's where the LiveScope came in, right? Because once these fish rose up off the bottom, I could adjust the cadence of my bait, throwing different things like the 6 Sense Provoke 106, right? I was throwing the DD, that's one of my favorite jerk baits I throw. But I was able to react to these fish when they lifted off bottom and then fish my bait properly for those fish, but I couldn't see them beforehand. So that being said, LiveScope was a tool to make me more efficient in that situation where I could work my bait accordingly to the mood of the fish, but I wasn't using the LiveScope to find specific fish, right? And there's different ways that I do that, not just on brush piles, but also as a shallow water tool. Use it as an example this year for me at Kentucky Lake, right? I was going around and fishing wood, and I was also fishing steps. And what I mean by that, and I don't know how to explain it because this is something different than I experience at home, but essentially at Kentucky Lake, they have this winter drawdown, right? And it's almost in a lot of areas of the lake created a second bank line. So you'll find these areas where they have a 5-foot swing in the water level, and you will have your current bank line coming down, and then it almost has a new bank line worn down when it's at winter pool. So what I was doing, it was actually finding staging areas where I could find this second bank line, and these fish were living on it. So I wasn't using it to catch the fish, but I was using it to find the right kind of cover to go fish for the fish that I'm targeting, right? Never caught a fish all week on LiveScope, but what I was able to do is fish effective areas throughout the day and keep my bait where it needed to be because I knew where these fish were located. I never even watched one eat, but I was able to pattern things that I would never see before, not even with side imaging in 2D, and be able to target them efficiently. Another thing I did during the same week and do consistently was throwing a spinner bait or a glide bait on laydowns. And these laydowns aren't deep. They may go out to 10 foot of water, but a lot of these laydowns are ending in 4, 5, 6 foot of water. So what I would do is use LiveScope as a tool with a spinner bait, with a glide bait, to not only keep my bait off the cover and keep it in position where I could make these fish react when I got it to an area where I thought they lived, but I could also tell when I was throwing the wrong bait and when they were not reacting properly, right? So I could throw a handful of baits throughout the day and figure out what they wanted to eat on that specific day. That's the cool part about LiveScope, is in the past we would pull up to these areas that we caught fish in practice and go through and fish these same laydowns and say, oh, cold front came in, they left us, rainstorm came in, they left us, right? When in reality, a lot of these times, unless there's extreme conditions, these fish are not leaving. They've just changed their mood. So we've had to adjust to them, and it's not always easy to adjust properly when you don't know how the fish are reacting to your bait, or even if they exist, right? So I learned that I could go through these sections, fish a spinnerbait, and I never figured out the right spinnerbait to make them eat. Well, I had a buddy come through right behind me, fish similar stretches of bank with a different spinnerbait and make them eat, right? Now, I wasn't able to make the adjustment on that day, but I can't explain how many days that allows me to make the adjustment to catch more fish, right? I'm able to not only see how they react, but keep my bait in the strike zone and fish parts of the laydown that I would normally fish that are up out of the water when they're shallower. And I'm also able to target other cover that some people aren't looking at because they're driving down the banks looking visually for something on the bank to throw at, where I'm able to go find things that are under the water. That's kind of one of the things that makes LiveScope a cool tool, is that yes, everyone can find everything, right? We can all find this cover, but that means the lake is fishing bigger, right? That there's more cover to be fished, more fish to throw at. So it's really opened up some doors in that way to fish new cover that we haven't been fishing, even in shallow water, 2, 3, 4, 5 foot of water, but also fish it effectively and know where we're putting our bait all the time and keep it in the strike zone. That's just a couple of examples of how I've used it. Let's go to summertime. Some of the things I love to do in the summer that I'm not seeing a lot of people do yet. You guys know, well, if you watch any of my content, I love to spend time in the summertime on lakes that have standing timber, right? What you can do with that without actually targeting physical single fish right offshore is I use it to fish the right kind of cover. So I may go out and fish certain types of trees, and these fish may not be suspended like they normally would be, and I can use it to fish for fish with a jig, a drop shot, I mean whatever it is, a big ridge worm. I can use this to target fish that are on the bases of these trees, but they're not on the base of every tree. They're in specific locations. They may have specific types of bottom, or it may be a specific type of tree that actually has an exposed root system on the bottom where it's on the edge of an old channel versus one that's on top that hasn't been washed out and doesn't have any cover for the fish to hide inside of, right? So I hope you guys are kind of picking up on what I'm talking about, on how you can go out and use this as not only a fish catching tool, but a tool to be efficient on the water. I really think it's something to be explored with LiveScope in the future. I really think it's actually the future of LiveScope, because I'm watching every day these fish offshore are getting smarter and smarter and smarter. The big glide baits are getting caught up with, right? Everyone's throwing them. All these fish offshore are getting the gamut of baits thrown at them, and they're getting educated just like our fish had up shallow in years past. Now, how do we adjust? We're starting to fish for the fish that are not getting fished for still. That's where this tool is heading, is using it as a tool to fish cover efficiently and effectively and not throwing at individual fish. And I don't think that throwing at individual fish that are out suspended is ever going to go away, but it is going to be tougher and tougher as the years go on. I'm seeing it already where fish are running from baits, not reacting the same as they did when it came out. And I don't think, to be honest, that they're feeling the beam off this LiveScope itself. Now, keep in mind, I'm too dumb for this conversation and I really don't know, but I think it's more of these fish feeling the presence, feeling the boat, the waves hitting the boat, and knowing that they're being targeted just like they would be up shallow. So things are changing, but these are just a few things to keep in mind, whether you're throwing the big draw, any type of bait. Think of ways you can go out and fish your specific body of water where fish live, but you may not be able to see them, but you can use it as a tool to fish effectively in a fun fishing scenario or even a tournament scenario where you're just being more effective with your unit rather than plucking off those individual fish. Keep in mind, you guys let me know if you have any questions or if you've experienced this yourself. Leave a comment. I'm curious to know because I'm always learning and trying to figure out new things and how to stay ahead of the curve with some of this technology with how other people are using it day in and day out. So I hope this was helpful. You guys think about it. Go try it out on your lake. Use this as a tool to go find places where fish live and react to the fish as they chase a bait rather than looking for individual fish. And let me know if you catch them in the comments because this is some information I've been excited to give out. I think it's going to help you guys catch more fish. As always, you guys don't forget, leave me some comments. Let me know on things you want to know about LiveScope, ways that I feel like, or you feel like I may be able to help you and give out more information with the experiences I've had. I really want to find more videos I can put out for you guys and figure out how to help. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm excited for the next one. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one.